Classical music fans were alarmed earlier this year when the Boston Globe appeared to be pulling back on its music coverage and reviews as part of broader cuts across the newsroom. But now the Globe has announced an unusual revenue source to support its coverage of classical music. A group of nonprofits will help pay for the Globe's coverage. Boston has long had a vibrant classical music scene, helped in part with robust coverage from the Boston Globe. But as staff music critic Jeremy Eichler takes a sabbatical, the Globe says it will take funding from 3 nonprofits to help pay freelance critic Zoe Madonna. Of course, outside funding for journalism is nothing new.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by
PBS, NPR, and public stations like WGBH rely heavily on support from foundations, nonprofits, and corporations. And the New York Times and others partner with nonprofits like ProPublica on specific projects. But for a for-profit newspaper like the Boston Globe to rely on grants for long-term funding is relatively new and brings potential entanglements. Editor Brian McGrory says the Globe had detailed discussions with the nonprofits involved before we entered into this partnership and had no sense they would even think about compromising our values. A coda they hope sticks. I don't know, Dan, I can't get too hopped up about this. I know there's a lot of concern in the arts criticism world about it, but if they extended this to, say, a political reporter or something like that, I think I'd be concerned about it. But these are the kinds of beats that are going to go away unless they figure out a creative way to do it.
This was one of the worst weeks for the newspaper business that we've seen in several years. Ad revenues collapsed again across the board. This doesn't bother me even a little. In fact, the same week that the Globe announced this, they ran a very good investigative series in collaboration with the Center for Responsive Politics, which is another nonprofit. Earlier this year, the Philadelphia Inquirer and its sister properties were donated in total to a nonprofit foundation. This is the way a lot of this is going to have to go. And if we can't come up with creative partnerships like this in the news business, then the coverage is going to disappear.
I just need to say, though, in our newsroom, people who know a lot more about music criticism than I do were concerned that there would be a compromise, that you can't criticize somebody who's funding you because they'd say, well, you can't do that, I'm going to take the funding away.
This is from the other coast.
And can she write a vicious rip job?
Yeah,
on a classical music series or a performer?
I guess.
Would that anger her nonprofit sponsors? Because they're dedicated to promoting. Right. And I'm just saying that's a possible issue. Now, what if, take this to perhaps an absurd extent, but what if, we don't have money to hire an education reporter? So instead, nonprofits like charter schools, charter schools in Massachusetts are nonprofit. They're going to pitch in to fund a Globe education reporter. Good luck when he or she starts writing about question 2. You can see the mushroom cloud over Morrissey Boulevard or downtown, soon to be downtown. So that may be an absurd example, but hey, it's tricky. That's all I'm saying.
The Globe already has some nonprofit education coverage, by the way. Not from charter school money, but they already have some of that.
Well, there's a potential conflict.
I have to say, I come at this with I shouldn't say dirty hands at this beat, but Boston University, we are, as is WGBH, one of the supporters. In fact, the New England Center for Investigative Reporting is part of the College of Communications, supported by WGBH. It is a nonprofit investigative reporting newsroom, and we have stories regularly on the front page of the Boston Globe.
But let me interrupt you. They also got in trouble when they didn't include BU in that rape.
That's one time. That's right.
That was the first time, and that was like
So this is a slippery slope in a sense, but I think you can navigate a slippery slope. It's called skiing, and I think you can do that.
Well, my concern, aside from that, which you've mentioned, and let's just go back to the fact that they're a for-profit institution using nonprofit monies. This is a little bit different. And my concern is who decides what is worthy enough to get nonprofit funding. So here we have, and don't misunderstand me, classical music is very important and particularly important in Boston. But I would say jazz is the American form. And we're not covering that to that extent. And if you pay someone or if you fund someone to focus on classical music, we're going to read about a lot of classical music.
not jazz.
Other forms of music will necessarily perhaps not be covered. That's
point.
my concern.
Super quickly to circle back to Dan's original point, all of this is nitpicking compared with the prospect of newspapers like the Globe vanishing or dying off.
Or not covering music at all.
Right.